Saskia ji, and welcome to Sanskriti Samvardhan Sanshodhan Pratishthan's Policy Advocacy Research Center, as well as Mumbai Tarun Bharat's joint venture, which is Bharatasya Sangeet Vishwanubandh Yatra, which is the journey of the interrelationship of Indian music with global culture. So we welcome you to this project where we are interacting with artists and instrument makers and all those who have looked at their form of music, whichever they are, in a very holistic and integrated manner, and trying to fuse it with other cultures as well. So welcome to you. We are very happy to have you on with us.
Thank you. Very happy to be here today.
Thank you. So we have Pauras Sarmarkar here with us. Pauras is a budding dentist, but a sitarist himself. And apart from that, apart from playing the sitar, he also teaches how to play the instrument. He's also into making models of musical instruments that have become extinct, like the Kachapi Veena or the Vipanchi Veena and Veena and things like that. And so this project is, you know, a culmination of all these little aspects, but which are so important to, taking it to people, because we are tracing the path from the prehistoric times to the present days. So with this little preamble on what the project is, it will be nice to know your journey, because we know that you have such a um, beautiful background of music, learning through several gurus, and which today is seen visually or through your beautiful form of art. But it will be nice to know where this journey began. So please let us know, Saskia ji, about it.
The journey began in a small village just outside of Amsterdam, where I was born, and growing up to become a cellist. I started to learn the cello when I was 7 or 8 years old, because my grandfather also played the cello, and I loved him very much, and I also wanted to play the cello like him. So at that point, I don't think I even knew where India was, even less that there was such a thing as Indian music. That all changed when I had started my own professional studies of the cello and musicology, and I heard one recording of the Junior brothers, and I was intrigued and wanted to know a little more about the music. I thought, let me find out, because there was an instant connection. Of course, not an intellectual understanding, but I think what I immediately did understand, and what later I could analyze probably why that instant connection was there, was the combination of a very deep-rooted culture, the individual expression which comes to the foreground in improvisation. So in a way, modernity combined with traditionalism, isn't it? So that was what stood out for me, and I was confirmed in that idea by my first guru, Dr. Sumati Mutatkar, who at the time that I met her was already in her late 70s, and was a very, very knowledgeable musician and musicologist as well, and was known as a purist. This beautiful older lady and this Dutch girl at that point, we connected really beautifully. And she told me, I think, about a week into teaching me when I came here, I wish I were a few years younger so I could learn this instrument. So to me, that shows always how open the musical culture of India is really. And that is really a beautiful thing. The other way of introducing the cello, then of course I learned really with the greatest in Holland still, when I continued my search for learning. I changed actually my conservatory to Rotterdam, where wonder of wonders, Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia was the artistic director. And he spent about 4 to 6 months every year based out of the Netherlands for all that time. So I had the opportunity to learn from him as well during those 6 years, which was very fortunate. And of course, I mean, that relation remains always like that, that doesn't change. So that is, we could say, the beginning of the, yeah,
Was it a
infatuation.
difficult part trying to, travel, amalgamate the two styles, because you have typical notations and everything, whereas in the
Look,
Indian front it would mean the complete.
notations are I think people in India give a bit too much of importance to notations. uh, Notations are just an indication of the notes you're playing, like in a rag, that you have to play these notes in aro, these avaro, and you have all these rules. So similarly, in a Western composition, you write it down and then play it. But that doesn't matter really. The fact that it's composed, or that doesn't matter. In Indian music, what is the main thing, of course, is to first learn the grammar and then make it your own expression. Like the great Picasso said, a good artist borrows, but the great artist steals. So you have to make it your own. You have to make things your own expression, and that's where it becomes interesting. For me, I felt that that would be the main thing for me in my journey. Um, so for a good 10 years, the only musical style I studied and listened to was Indian classical music, to make sure that making it your own um, happened. So, and obviously, I mean, then music is always a continuant process. What I learn every day, because otherwise, I think life would be extremely boring. But that being said, that basic technicality and up to the stage where people actually would enjoy listening to you during a concert. Those first things, yeah, that takes time. There's no shortcut. You have to put in the hours. It's in any music. I mean, whether you talk to a Western classical, Indian classical, folk music, it doesn't matter. Musicians put in the hours if you want to reach to a certain level. There's no shortcut for that. So I did that. I put in the hours, and yeah, difficult. I never like to use the word difficult in music. Again, I can quote a great cellist, Pablo Casals, who said the greatest technique is the one that is never heard.
uh,
Because we should never hear, oh, look at me playing this very difficult thing. Sometimes artists do that, and it's maybe not so musical, is it? Music should flow, it should be something natural, in my opinion. So, difficult. Well, you need to put in the hours. You need to go through the process. Uh, yeah, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, technically. These all processes happen simultaneously, and that is, yeah, it's a very intense process. I think. I think as a musician, and you would agree with that. You always self-analyze every single day of your life. That's a good thing, right? That's
Very true.
yeah.
Then what is it that inspired you to mold or rather change onto the instrument to suit it and technically, right, for making it suitable for you to play it while sitting? So there must have been something that started on you mulling over how to change or modify the instrument, or what was it that caused the
Like the
need to do
double
so?
cello which we play sitting on chair, and you have
Yeah.
made it the Indian style to sit on in a sukhasan and to play it in the Indian style. So what's the story behind that? You would like to know.
The story again, it was a process. The first time I came to India, I played on my regular 4-string cello. I tuned it differently already after the very first class, and sat on the floor with it. Those things, yeah, I applied immediately. Sitting on the floor, basically, my guru was sitting on the floor and I was sitting on a chair. That's not the right equation to learn music. So I made sure I could sit on the floor. That was possible. It's not impossible with a big instrument. My first idea was to have resonating strings. And I was very lucky that way because my violin builder in the Netherlands, from whom I got my very first cello when I was 8 years old, he also is a great innovator for the Haydn. Haydn was a composer, and he created, he composed music for rather unique instruments. So Eduard had made beautiful instruments of old times, like Baroque time, and with many different strings. So he had experience with different instruments. And he had a huge workshop where I was welcome anytime. And we could experiment. So the first experimental instrument was just a cello with some resonating strings, and it sounded amazing. So from there, I started experimenting. The next one, I thought, let me try a smaller instrument, because you have to imagine that, of course, in the cello, the distances are really big on each string, and the friction is really high, both because you need to press down the strings quite a lot, and the strings are really thick as well. So they're not as thick as sarangi, but the lower strings come close. Sarangi players, of course, solve that problem by never pressing the strings, but playing with the cuticles. So there is less friction, right? Violinists don't have that problem because the strings are really thin, and there won't be as much friction to push them down. But with the cello, these are things you need to overcome. So that's why many people say that it would be more suitable for only the Drupad style. But I wanted to play more like the Gharana I'm a part of, in a way, the Maihar Gharana. So Drupad Alap, and then different styles of compositions, different beats, and but also really faster work with different tans, jhala, all these different things. And then I started experimenting with different sized cellos. And I came to a slightly smaller neck than the normal cello, which enabled me also to tune the strings a little higher, so the size in D. But also have a little less of that friction. Even when it's tuned a little higher, these strings are a little looser. So it's just easier to play these technical different gamakas and especially gamakas. So that was the reason why I changed the instrument. Then in 2005, Eduard built a complete new instrument for me. With the dimensions, it was slightly shorter than the Western cello, and the body slightly wider. So you wouldn't lose any of the sound quality and the resonance and the bass, but it was easier to sit on the floor with, and also the technical embellishments would get a maximum clarity. So that's what we decided on. And then now in 2014, one other new instrument was made for me by the wonderful French luthier, violin builder, Alexandre Letellier, who lives in Pondichéry. He's a great innovator of musical instruments as well. So I gave him basically very practical. The dimensions of the cello should be in a way that I could take it as hand luggage on a flight. Because, yeah, I always had to buy a ticket for the cello sitting next to me on a flight, which even still wasn't that big of a problem, but it was just very tiring to every time I would check in to explain it to the check-in counters. So this is a little easier. I call it a guitar when I travel, so people don't misunderstand it. But the reason for this instrument was very practical, but the execution of Alexandre was so masterful that I even otherwise often use it. So I think, yeah, that's the full story.
So, ma'am, you have how much sympathetic strings are there on this instrument right now?
10 sympathetic strings
Okay.
and 5 playing strings.
Okay, you have added one more extra string than the regular
Yes.
cello, just
Yeah.
to compensate the length of. Uh,
One higher string, which serves both as that I can really go in the higher pitch. So especially with lighter styles, that works well. With and the other thing is that I can use it as a standing string. Yeah.
for chala?
That yeah, for the
For
chala.
chala,
Exactly.
okay, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I've seen you playing amazingly the techniques.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So these, yeah, that was, yeah, the reasons behind it. Yeah.
So it would be very difficult for you to develop new techniques which weren't there on the regular cello, like developing a jhala for cello, uh, the Indian way. How it was difficult for you?
I always took in consideration what Guruji Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia told me in, I think, the second or third year learning from him. And he told me, you should not play like a vocalist. You should not play like a sitarist or a flutist. You should create your own style of playing the cello in a way. So that's why I learned from many different instruments. He said that I should do that. So certain parts are maybe more like a vocal. Others are where I use these instrumental techniques. Also South Indian music. I mean, if you listen to El Subramaniam, he uses those kind of techniques as well. So yeah, and then of course I could, after forgetting my Western background in a way for a number of years, I then again could take from that what I had learned, and yeah, are largely bowing techniques that I had learned in Western style of playing.
So this journey was like you kind of desynthesize, you bring it again, synthesize, and then a new amalgamation of not just the technique, but of the technicalities and something which comes from within, which is your own creation. Because I mean, as you started with one, you learnt another, unlearned one, resynthesized it, and something which comes out today is which is something which is so beautiful, which is a baby, which is a product of both. It's like a child. You
Yeah,
have
true.
the traits of both the start, the original learning from of the cello, and now which is a totally amalgamated and totally assimilated new output, which is different, but it's
Yes,
adds
you have
one more
developed a own
beauty to
gharana of yourself, the
the
cello
entire thing.
gharana.
So yeah, right,
Yes,
a cello gharana, correct.
cello gharana.
No, I wouldn't say that. It's that way. It's always remains a journey, always. And yeah, it's it's an interesting journey. All music. And in that way, I think music is always about creativity in the end,
Yes,
and that freedom that we find in when we play it. It's a hard-earned freedom, obviously. I mean, you need a lot of years of practice and all that. But yeah, other than that, I think the freedom it gives any artist
right.
to create and to play is it's a wonderful journey. Yeah.
And you have a lot of students who are learning this technique from you. So what is
I
their
do.
approach to learning it? I mean, the ethos of the technique that they are learning, because they may have one, they could be learning it out of pure curiosity of a new style.
Yeah.
One, it could be like something which is now going to become an integrated part, which is now an integrated part. Like we can't say that it is that was Western music, this is Indian, but this is something which is totally new, a new creation which you will be handing down to a new generation of artists and music makers.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's I love teaching. I love teaching, and I think it's a very, very, very important part of who I am. And I do think a lot about it. And like you said, yeah, there are so many different kind of students who have different reasons to want to learn the Indian cello, or Indian music on the cello, or however you call it. Um, yeah, and I don't think there's only one right way in that sense to do that. So we have to understand when someone comes, what is it that they want from the music, from learning this. So I really enjoy that. And some are very serious and put in hours and hours of practice. Others might be a little interested and want to learn a little bit. Others are professional cellists and want to just refresh their connection with their instrument through learning different things. So there's so many different ways of learning, and yeah, I enjoy that. And of course, it's exciting when students start doing really well themselves as well. So that's wonderful to see.
so you
Yeah.
have to have the who the new instrument that you have is now made in India, the
Yes,
with all
it
the
is by,
modifications that are there now.
yeah, by Alexandre in Pondichéry.
Pondicherry.
Yes, yeah, he makes it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when students or new people want to learn it, it is the instrument which is made by Mr. Alexander that everyone's using now.
Yes, that some people are using. Others are playing it just on the regular cello. To be
Oh,
honest, it I even sometimes teach on a regular Western cello as well. It doesn't matter finally the instrument in that sense, because it's about how you play it, the playing style and
Yes,
playing
the
technique.
techniques of the gharanas, what you are going to teach, rather than the
Exactly.
instrument. Yes, yes,
Yes.
because you have learned from Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia ji, and it was on flute. Right, and you have incorporated the same style on cello. Was it
Yes.
true?
Yes, absolutely. That's how it works, and others from whom I learned whatever they taught me that to apply it in that way. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, thank you so much for your valuable time and your contribution. And this is really a treasure for us. This would be an archival record for our project. And this is a
Thank
very
you.
valuable information for our project. So I thank you.